Here's what we know. We just learned it literally in the last hour. GE is pretty close to a deal for Alstom. Could be announced as soon as next week. Price tag's in the range of about $13 billion US. They're still negotiating, hammering out some final details, but it's a decent premium. It's 25–30% for Alstom, which is down quite a bit. Their shares have been under a lot of pressure. They haven't performed all that well. I think they've been approached by GE in the past and generally been told no thanks, but they're not as strong or they're not in the position they were in the past.
Did they say no thanks or did they say no merci?
I wasn't in the middle of the room, so but you. That was
the reason
probably,
the reason I mentioned it is because I want you to tell people about how this is a French company, got a lot of assets not only in Europe but around the world.
Right. Well, thankfully for GE, they're seen as a good corporate citizen in Europe and in Paris. When it's going to matter how the French government, perceives this deal. So I think GE will be fine getting this through the regulatory process. They may have to divest some assets. There's some nuclear power plants that could be problematic. But the other thing that's going for GE is it's got a lot of cash sitting offshore, and now it finally has an opportunity to use some of that.
Now, when you say sitting offshore, what is it that they didn't want to bring it back to the United States because then it would be subject to corporate tax?
You think a big U.S. corporation would try to duck U.S. corporate taxes?
I don't know.
I'll go with that. Yeah, that's exactly it. GE, Pfizer, Cisco, a lot of the biggest companies in the United States are stashing cash, billions of dollars offshore so they don't have to pay U.S. corporate taxes. So it sits there until they can find an opportunity to either invest or do a big M&A transaction in whatever country they have currency in. In the case of GE, the last filing showed 50-something billion in cash and cash equivalents outside the United States.
The Alstom business, you mentioned power plants. I talked about trains. I mean, is this an engineering conglomerate? Is this more of what GE needs?
Yeah, this is it's very much a big deal for GE. GE's a mega company,
right.
But typically they've been doing $1 to $4 billion deals. So this is 3 times the size of what GE's been doing lately.
Right, they did an oil and gas deal, I believe, last year.
And that's what you've been seeing is they'll do a small healthcare deal, they'll do an oil field services, and now here they're doing something that's, as you said, more engineering and also power generation. So, I mean, that's been the GE model, is continuing to be the biggest diversified industrial out there.